So, BER 08-10, the infamous 08-10 public welfare design of medical equipment. I think I've struggled with this case more than any other, and I think it's definitely the most important BER case that we read. Um, the facts are as they are. It's very sort of complicated facts. I won't go over them in detail, but the details matter. Engineer A is asked by another engineer informally to review the design of a respirator made for infant use for babies. Engineer A discovers what he considers to be a serious design flaw that would make it very dangerous, uh, maybe even lethal, and makes some suggestions for how it can be improved and what it would need to be done, what would need to be done to make it safe. And then is told a month later by the original engineer B that nothing has been done. Engineer A then says that unless something is not done promptly to correct the problem, he will be compelled to report the matter to an appropriate federal regulatory agency. I think I read this case before I was well read in BER cases, and for that reason, I was surprised by the question. That is, what question was asked about these circumstances, these details um, that the board thought was of most ethical concern. And instead of focusing on the probably or possibly unsafe product that the company was really had released to the public, remember, Engineer A finds out that not only has nothing been done, but that the product is now in general use. It doesn't focus on that. It doesn't focus on the first canon aspect of it. It focuses on the fourth canon aspect of it. That is, was it ethical for Engineer A to indicate what he did, to say what he did to his employer? I understand now because the company itself is a company that makes medical respirators products. And so the company itself is not subject to the NSPE code. So the ethics of what the company did, that is not within the interest and range of the BER. It's what engineers do. Engineers who are subject to the code, it's what they do. That is what they're concerned with. So if they're going to ask anything, they're going to ask about the behavior of the engineers and ask about what Engineer A did. So in that respect, it makes a lot of sense to me now. Now, it still feels a little funny, maybe, um, to focus on an engineer who is concerned about their first canon duties, whether they had it right ethically to make an ultimatum to their employer about what they'll do if they don't address the problem or what the engineer considers to be a problem. But it makes total sense, actually, that that is what they focus on. Um, of course, we know we've read to the end that they believe that the engineer acted unethically, and they characterize what he did as making a threat. That is, that he threatened his company. I would contest that word threat. I don't think that he. I think to characterize what he said as a threat is loaded language on the part of the BER. I think that they made a mistake. That he was not threatening them with anything. He was giving them an ultimatum. And that ultimatum was either they address the problem or he goes to a federal regulatory agency. That is not a threat. A threat is when you inform somebody that you are going to inflict harm on them with malicious intent if they don't do what you wish. And I don't think we can characterize at all engineers A's actions as that. So I'm going to dismiss or just ignore that accusation of making a threat and look at the basis upon which they make their decision that he acted unethically, which is essentially that he should have kept in mind that he was not an expert in medical respirators, that he was not involved in the project, and so he was not in a position to know all the relevant facts to make a to make an informed judgment. That's the language that they use. Uh, mm, yeah. He was not personally involved in the engineering decision making process, didn't have any particular expertise in the technical area involved. Engineer A, it says right here, may not be in possession of the necessary information to make an informed judgment. So, what should the engineer have done? Should he have ignored his first canon duties and his concerns? No. Uh, what it says at the end, if after making additional inquiries, engineer A determines that no meaningful actions are being taken to address the issue, engineer A should explore internal mechanisms within MedTech to seek further recourse regarding this issue. Only if such efforts do not produce satisfactory results should engineer A consider exploring external avenues for action. So, this is something that the BER will often say that before an engineer blows the whistle, that is, goes outside their company or goes outside their client relationship in informing any outside party of a danger to the public or any ethical problem, they must exhaust all internal mechanisms for dealing with the problem. Um, that is their position, and their accusation of unethical behavior against Engineer A rests on the basis, basically, that he didn't do that. Now, that may be correct. I'm not saying it's not. These things are often judgment calls. But one of the things that they don't consider in their conclusion is that, number one, Engineer A has made, well, they characterize his opinion as a mere personal opinion, but that is also false. It is his engineering judgment, his professional opinion, that this piece of technology is unsafe. It's not his mere personal opinion, even if he's not an expert. It is his professional engineering judgment. And secondly, the matter, at least to his mind, is very pressing because um, these respirators are now on the market. That is, they're being used, presumably by the public, under conditions that Engineer A suspects may be disastrous. So, in not taking into account the imminent danger, at least from Engineer A's point of view, I think that that is a mistake. That should be taken into consideration in judging Engineer A's actions, which is not to say that they don't have a point. Perhaps Engineer A should have done more internally to try to resolve the problem. Perhaps Engineer A should have had more faith in his company. Perhaps when Engineer A was told that the matter is being looked into, he should have judged that that was the end of his involvement. I don't know. That's possible, but it's certainly possible, especially with the fact that the respirators are on the market and presumably being used. That Engineer A, it could an argument, equally strong argument, could be made that his ultimatum, which was not a threat, but his ultimatum that he would go to a federal regulatory agency if prompt measures were not taken, was entirely reasonable in the circumstances. Again, it's a judgment call. I would say, frankly, from my personal point of view, I don't want to impose this on you, that they got it wrong. The BER got it wrong in this case. And that is, they made the wrong judgment. It's not that the judgment that they did make is indefensible. No, it's defensible. But that they made the wrong judgment. But that is my take on it. I don't know what you think about it. It's an extremely interesting case either way. And I would say, as far as the conflict between the first canon and the fourth canon, this is like the case, right? Where an engineer has to decide, under the circumstances, which canon takes precedence. The first, to hold paramount the health, safety, and welfare of the public, or the fourth, to act as a faithful agent or trustee of your employer or client.